my favorite members to work with because such an exciting time in your life, such an exciting experience. So I'm going to turn it over to Ginger and Chelsea to introduce, but before I do, just to give you kind of our outline is to go through some of the more commonly asked questions that we find from our members, and then we will have a question and answer period at the end of the session. So you'll be able to unmute and ask away. But with that, I'll turn it over to Ginger.
Thank you. My name is Ginger Colbeck. I am a senior mortgage lender at PCM, and I job share with another loan officer, Kelly Schumacher. She's not able to be here right now. We have been with PCM 23 years and specialize in mortgage lending, and have worked for credit unions and financials pretty much my whole career. So yeah, we're really looking forward to hearing what questions you may have. Buying a new home is always a little daunting, and I always tell my members that it's kind of like a puzzle, and we always hope that our piece of the puzzle is like the corner piece that you can find the easiest and put it right in place. So
my name is Chelsea. I'm another senior mortgage loan officer with the credit union. I've been mortgage lending for 10 years, been with the credit union for 12. I've been at other credit unions and lending fields, and I truly am passionate about mortgage lending, and I often joke this is probably my dream job just because I love sharing the excitement of buying a new home with my members, and I really look forward to presenting with you all today.
All right, so with that, we'll get started. We're gonna go through some of the common questions. So this is really an outline of our agenda today. Again, don't worry if some of the questions you don't see on the screen, because we will have time for question and answers. So a lot of the questions we get for our first time home buyers is, first of all, how much can I afford? And we'll go through what our ratios are, but we're gonna really cover on what's affordable for you. It has to be comfortable in your budget. What's all included in my house payment? How much do I need for a down payment anyway? You hear of PMI, MI, what is private mortgage insurance, PMI? We're gonna cover that. What are the closing costs that are involved when you're buying a home? And lastly, what are the credit qualifications? What does my credit score need to be to qualify? So as a lender, again, these are our guidelines as lenders. We use, and this is uniform throughout the country. Lenders for mortgages use this 28-36 rule to determine what you can afford when you're purchasing a house. So we use your gross monthly income. So, and that is your income before your taxes, before your insurance is taken out, before any deductions, that is your gross income. So what we do is we take your gross monthly income, and I'll have an example in the next slide. We take your gross monthly income and we say 28% of that should be your maximum housing payment. Again, it's a guideline. And then out of your, again, gross monthly income, 36% of that should be all of your loans, including your housing payment. So 28% of your gross monthly income is housing only, up to 36% would be housing, car payment, student loans, any other loan payments that you have outstanding. So at PCM, we are a little bit more flexible. We can go up to 40% of your gross monthly income when we're qualifying you. So we can get you a little bit more house for your money. And I do have a good example of that. There we go. So here's an example of a couple. So a husband and wife, let's just say, making $60,000 a year each. So husband $60,000 and wife $60,000. Trying to make this easy for the math. We put the incomes together. The gross yearly income is $120,000. To determine what gross monthly is, all we're doing is taking that $120,000 for the whole year, and we're dividing that into 12 months. So husband and wife together, their gross monthly income is $10,000 per month. Again, that's before taxes, insurance, any deductions. What we do is we take that $10,000 then, and we multiply that times that 28% standard. So according to the guidelines, $2,800 is the maximum housing payment that this couple should be taking out. And that includes their principal, their interest, their taxes, their homeowner's insurance. We're gonna cover what's all included in a mortgage payment a little bit later on, but that's, as a lender, how we're calculating what you can afford for a for a housing payment. And then that 36% rule, remember, is all the debt. So 10,000 times 36% of a person or a couple's gross monthly income is the 3,600. So if you take that 3,600, that's all the debt that your debt ratio says that you can afford, minusing that $2,800 housing payment, that leaves you $800 left for any other loan payments. Again, and that's anything that's a loan, so it's not utility bills, it's not a cell phone bill, anything like that. It's only loans that report to the credit bureau. So loan payments, a signature loan, a car loan, credit cards, student loan payments, anything like that would be included in your debt to income ratio or debt ratio.
Okay, thanks, Stacy. Okay, so I will touch on what's included in your housing payment. So Stacy briefly mentioned the words principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Sometimes abbreviated PITI. What's your PITI payment? So we have an example here, a $300,000 loan at 5.875, a pretty standard rate. Ours is actually a little bit lower than that right now, but this is a 5% down payment. So you'll see we annualize the property taxes and divide that by 12 to break it down into a monthly amount, and same with the homeowner's insurance. And those are pretty average amounts for today's housing market. Homeowners insurance definitely increased here in the last year, but you'll see the breakdown. So your principal and interest is what your payment portion is due to the credit union. That comes in at $1,775. This loan would have private mortgage insurance, which we'll touch on in a little bit, but that is a monthly premium that we pay to a private mortgage insurance company. That's $78. That's pretty average with good credit. Property taxes would be $350 a month, and homeowners insurance would be $125 a month. So every single month you would make one payment to the credit union for $2,328, and the system is going to break it down in PMI, your escrow, which includes taxes and insurance. Principal or interest will go first and principal will go last. So that is your monthly obligation to the credit union, and our system will break it all down for you where it needs to go appropriately. Okay, this is a really big question we often get. How much do you need for a down payment? I think a lot of people think, oh, I need 20% down. It's very hard to save for a 20% down payment, especially with where housing prices are sitting. That 20% down is, if you're looking for a conventional loan, a fixed rate, you want to get a better rate, yes, that's available, but a lot of lenders are going to want 20%, but we have a nice little program that if you can do 10% down, we will waive private mortgage insurance. And I often tell my borrowers, private mortgage insurance is not a bad thing. If you don't have the savings up front, it's a great thing. If you have good credit, you can put sometimes as little as 3% down. I prefer a 5% down payment if you can do it. You're going to get a better premium. You have a little, we're going to work with you to get to that 5%, but what it will do is that was that $78 a month in that payment, and you're paying a insurance premium because you don't have the 10% down. That insurance will stay on your loan until you reach a 22% down payment. You can request for it to drop off when you hit the 20% down, but it's not a bad thing. But I would say our 10% down is probably our most popular product because you can avoid paying that monthly premium to the private mortgage insurance company. Okay, down payment assistance. We are partnered with the Federal Home Loan Bank. If you were to meet with someone at NeighborWorks, we are on a list of a down payment plus program. PCM is involved with that program. And what that means is if you are approved based on your income, it's household income, so we would need to verify a tax return. Who is making income in that family? And it's per the county. So every county has a different household income, threshold. So we will work with you to see if you're eligible. It can give you a forgivable grant. So you have to put some upfront funds and we will determine what your grant can be gifted. It's up to 3 times of what you put in. There are maximums. But if you stay in the home, there's a 5-year retention period. That is a forgivable grant. So it's free money if you qualify for the down payment assistance. You can also use that as part of your closing costs. We do require you, or the Federal Home Loan Bank does require you to get home buyer education. I typically tell my borrowers to, I can give you the guidance if do you qualify based on your income, but I usually say next step, reach out to someone with NeighborWorks. They have home buying counselors because you do actually need a certificate that you've completed that educational course. So this is a great option, and you can always contact us if you want to see if you may qualify for the down payment plus grant. Okay, closing costs. This is a big one. I will tell you hands down, we are likely one of the cheapest in town, and if you see on the screen there are a lot of fees that go in, and fees, a silly word, but there are costs that go into buying a home. So, if you want to read through them there, but PCM does not charge an application fee. That's something that other lenders will. Appraisals are standard, flood certs, tax service fees, recording fees. The rest of them are all very standard fees, but we do our best to try to keep our fees low. We actually have a lender credit special going on, and I think we'll touch on that a little bit more, but it's so important to know what your closing costs are. We far too often hear members say, oh, I bought my house, my closing costs were $6,000. It's first, just call us. But if you do end up working with a broker or another financial, really ask what are the fees and how much are they before you invest into a loan with them. So. Other costs, right now there's a really big realtor commission. So work with your realtor. We don't have a license to sell real estate or advise legal contracts, but work with your realtor to know the upfront fees. Are you as a buyer responsible for any realtor commission? Home inspection, we don't require those. Those are not a part of the loan requirement. But, in a different market, some people are waiving them. My dad would say, never buy a house without a home inspection. So work with your realtor, trust your gut. If you feel like you want a home inspection, that's not a fee of ours, but it may be something you would feel comfortable waiving or not waiving. Homeowners insurance, it is a requirement of the loan. We typically require that before your closing. I usually say get a few quotes. It's always a benefit if you can bundle with your insurance and trust your insurance agent for that. An escrow, it is a confusing word, but what an escrow just quickly is, if you do not have 20% down on a purchase, we will require you to escrow. That is going to be the chunk of your payment, that is your property taxes. In most mortgage worlds includes a homeowner's insurance premium. We do not require it because we want you to be able to save and bundle. And then that PMI coverage. So we may have to build up an escrow depending on when you buy a house. Moving expenses, hey, you need a U-Haul, you need to pay a company to move you across the country. Think about that. And then home improvements. I usually say buying your first home or even a second or third home, you are going to want to go buy paint. Go to Lowe's every weekend. You're gonna wanna invest and make the home that you just purchased how you want it. So it is gonna feel like you're spending. So be prepared it's nice to have some funds available for those home updates too. Okay, the total due. So here's back to that example, a $300,000 purchase price. This is our 10% down, no private mortgage insurance, which is awesome. So there's $30,000 for your down payment. Our current closing cost special is $1,299. To do a mortgage with us, I would say $2,500 to $3,000 in just closing costs. So right now, this special, we are crediting you back a large chunk of money because it's just something that PCM has been able to do, and I think it's pretty awesome. If why make you pay more if we can give you a little kickback, because home buying is expensive. Homeowners insurance, I'd say $1,500 is a fair amount these days, and then an escrow setup. If you were buying a house in closing in January, we're gonna throw a month of taxes and insurance in there. So I would say if you were to buy a $300,000 house early in January, we would need to verify that you have roughly $33,000 on deposit at a financial to purchase that home. And there's just a little snippet of a closing disclosure. You might hear the word CD out there, very foreign, but prior to a closing, we legally have to send you to the penny a snapshot of your loan, your terms, and the big kicker, what is it going to take to buy this house before you get to the closing at the title company. So that's just a little example. Okay, and then my last slide here is
Up to me.
up to Ginger.
Credit scores, everybody's talking about credit scores these days. It comes into play not just with homes, but insurance, your auto insurance, so you really do want to be aware of what your score is. If you go with a conventional loan, when we talk about conventional loans, that's a Fannie Mae loan. Those are processed through us, but then sold to an outside lender. So they have a lot of adjustments depending upon what your score is. They also have adjustments for your down payment, so things are a little bit different. When we're looking at PCM loans, we don't have a minimum score. We're definitely gonna look at your scores, but we're also gonna look at what is your credit history. Scores can really jump a lot, even within a 2 or 30-day time frame. We've seen scores, because an example of something that we saw once, a member consolidated several credit cards, closed his old credit cards, now had a large credit card with a large amount, score dropped by 100 points in 30 days. So scores can really jump around, so we like to just look at how's your credit, how are things going. If we have a married couple or a couple applying jointly, we're gonna look at both scores, but if somebody's in the 500s and somebody's in the 700s, we're not gonna make any adjustments to that rate. On our in-house loans, you'll see there we have what is an ARM rate? ARM stands for adjustable rate mortgage. So ours is a 7-1 ARM. The 7-year time frame is the time frame that your rate cannot adjust. The 1 is every year after that, it can adjust 1% from the rate that it's at in a 12-month period. We also have a cap on it. It cannot change more than 4% from your original interest rate. So you can't end up at 18% on your mortgage. A lot of times people take this program. This is by far the majority of what we're doing, because we can offer that $1,299 closing cost special. And a lot of times people aren't in that first home past 7 years, or they refinance it at some point because you're doing home improvements or the rates drop. Credit scoring, so you can see it's a mixture percentage of how it's all compiled. The length of your credit history, how long have you had your credit? Do you have a lot of credit cards versus installment loans? New credit is gonna drop your score, but eventually it's gonna boost back up. Your payment history, you'll see that 35%, that's huge. You wanna make your payments on time, that's very important. And then the amount that you owe. If you have a $10,000 credit card limit, you want to keep that balance at 30% ideally of the credit limit. If you take it right up to that $10,000 limit, your score is going to drop. Once you pay it, it's going to bounce back up. We're going to skip right to this because in 2 slides we have one on how to improve your credit. So things that are going to hurt your credit. Obviously missing a loan payment, if you don't make a payment on time, that's gonna impact your score. Maxing out your credit cards, what I just mentioned, you wanna keep your balances lower. Sometimes if you have 2 credit cards, an ideal situation or ideal thing would be to maybe split up your balances so you don't carry it all on one credit card, because that's gonna lower your score. Closing out credit cards that you've had for a long time can hurt you as well, because that's a long history that you had. Back in the day, we used to do consolidations and then tell people, close these credit cards because you're not using them. And now our advice is keep them, but maybe tuck them away somewhere so you're not tempted to use them, but that's gonna keep your credit score up. Any collection accounts that you have, of course, you're gonna wanna get paid, because those are gonna bring your score down. And opening numerous trade lines. In other words, if you're taking out a loan here and a loan there and a credit card, that's gonna bring your score down. Things that are gonna improve your score, paying off your loans or paying down your credit card balances, converting the credit card debt that you have into an installment loan, of course, making your payments on time. This is a big one, refraining from opening new credit card accounts. When you are in Kohl's or Ulta buying some makeup, don't be tempted to take the credit card to get that 10% off, because the more you do that, that score is going to drop. When you're ready to buy, we absolutely suggest that you get pre-approved with us. Call, you can apply online, any of us are happy to work with you. Our pre-approvals are good for 90 days. So once we have you pre-approved, we're gonna send a letter out letting you know that you're pre-approved. You can use that to provide it to your realtor and to sellers so they know that you are a qualified buyer. Once that pre-approval letter expires, I always tell my members, just let me know. If you were good on day 1, you're gonna be good on day 91, assuming nothing has changed. You haven't changed your job, your credit hasn't changed. Basically, what we do at that point is we will update your letter and we'll add a line in there that says, upon receiving an accepted offer to purchase, we will do a new credit check. That way we're not running your credit at day 91, because these days it can take longer to find a home. A lot of people, I've had members that are looking for a house for a year, unfortunately, just because of the lack of homes that are out there. We don't have any application fee to get you pre-approved, so that's not a concern. It does not cost you anything. And again, we'll go through all the numbers with you to make sure you're comfortable with the payment. Often people ask me, how much can I afford? And I'm happy to look at those numbers, but I like to start by asking, how much do you want to spend? Because usually what I can pre-approve you for is more than what you want to spend. I look at it this way: do you want to live in your house, or do you want to go outside of your house and go to dinner and do some things? So we don't want to max you out on a house price that you can't afford.
So we want to thank you for joining us today. This buying house really is truly one of life's most exciting experiences and one of the biggest purchases that you'll make overall. So we're really excited to be your partner and help you with that home purchase. We hope to earn your trust as a financial resource. With that, we would like to open it to any questions that you guys might have. So please feel free to unmute and ask away.
I have a question, just to get
Yes.
us started.
Yeah.
When people say they wanna get pre-qualified, what's the difference between that and pre-approved?
I think different financial institutions look at it different. Pre-qualification at some financials wouldn't have documents like tax returns or check stubs or W-2s. They've just looked at the numbers. PCM looks at it a little bit differently. If you apply with us, we can give you a pre-approval letter without maybe gathering your W-2s and paycheck stubs, because we're basing it on the application that was submitted. So if something was submitted incorrectly, that pre-approval is gonna be null and void.
Great question. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, with that, we'll give you some time back. We highly recommend any questions, or you just wanna get a good handle on numbers, what works for you, please feel free to make an appointment with us. Like Chelsea said and Ginger said, it's free. So we'll meet with you, we'll sit with you for a good hour and we'll run through your budget. We'll make recommendations for credit if you want us to. And we'll give you some down payment options like we went over earlier. So it's really smart idea to come in, sit with us just to run some numbers, see what's comfortable for you again, and let us help you buy your first home. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.